What's up agents, Epic Slayers here, welcome back to a brand new Division video. Yesterday Massive announced they will be looking into the striker meta, so I thought today would be a good idea that I actually talked about the striker meta currently, my opinions on it and the changes I would like to see to this meta, and also look at your guys' feedback as well on how they should balance this gear set in the future. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you do, drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and let's get to this discussion. First off, I think it's worth looking at why Striker is currently the meta, certainly in PvP, and why it needs to be addressed in the first place. Now, it wasn't so long ago that we had the Holy Trinity. We had Predator, we had Nomad, and we had Striker. Now, Predator got a nerf, it got a hard counter, which should have always been there. And now Predator is still a strong set, but we do have a hard counter to it. We can use an immunizer box to stop that bleed. And we can also use the talent, allowing our med kit to give us 7 seconds of immunity against any status effects. So that's really, really cool. Nomad as well was semi-nerfed in the sense that you can only proc the 6-piece whilst you are solo, and no longer will you be able to use it in a group mode, meaning that in a group you can't have infinite lives. Striker was not addressed, and most people said, well actually if you don't address Striker it will become the meta, and that's what's happened, and now they are addressing the situation. So why is Striker so strong? Well, first off, there is no hard counter to Striker at this present time. Now you can use an EMP nade or an EMP sticky on a Striker user, and all that's going to do is pause the stacks of the Striker. So for example, if I'm a Striker user and someone EMP stickies me and I'm at 50 stacks, then my stacks gets paused, which means I can't gain stacks if I'm firing shots against a player. But if I'm at 50 stacks, it doesn't actually reset those stacks, and it actually means I'm doing that extra damage from those stacks. And also, in some situations, it can be advantageous to the Striker user, because if you miss shots or whatever the case may be, say for example you're running away, you won't be losing stacks, which you would normally lose if that EMP effect wasn't there. So that's a big problem. EMP really needs to do its job and probably reset the stats, but we'll talk about that in a little while. So that's one of the main reasons why Striker is so strong. With that as well, Striker has self-heal or sustain that no other build can offer. With the update, stamina got quite a big increase, so it meant that actually skill power was no longer useful. If you use first aid now, you barely get any health back, which is why most people run an immunizer box to bring their heal back. And because of that, no one's using first aid, and most people don't really have much self-heal. Striker will give you self-heal, and quite a lot of it, certainly when you start reaching the higher ends of stacks, because the amount of stacks you have affects the amount of heal that you get based on the amount of stamina you have. So as long as you're sitting over 6k stamina, you're going to be getting pretty good heals back, and if you're sitting at 9k stamina and you've got 100 stacks, then your heal will be crazy good, and you will still be doing as much damage as most other builds in the game, if not more. So, the third point, and I just mentioned it there, when you are sitting at near 100 stacks on Striker or even 50 stacks, you're doing more damage than any other build in the game. So, you've got a build here that offers an amazing amount of damage, an amazing amount of heal, and no hard counter as long as you can hit someone with your gun, which isn't particularly difficult when you're running something like a Showstopper or you're running an SMG up close, which is how it's mainly rolling at the moment on console, not so much on PC, and I'll talk about that as well, but mainly on console, that's how it's rolling. So that's why it's so strong, that's why it's being addressed. Let's look at the reasons why people think, not the reasons, but let's look at the suggestions that people have got on how to balance the gear set, and I'll give my my thoughts and opinions on that as well. So now I'm going to look at the reasons how we balance this gear set, and I will talk about one particular weapon and some changes as well that need to be happening to that as well, because that's currently ruining PvP on console. Now, I will talk about console mostly because I've never played the Division on PC. Now, I do know Striker is still the meta on PC, but it's more about the assault rifles and the SMGs, as opposed to the Showstopper exotic shotgun on console. And I think the reason for that is that basically on PC it's a lot easier to hit shots on NPCs or agents from further away because you use a mouse and keyboard. Whereas on console, that's not the case. It's much harder to hit enemies that are further away. So you are trying to get up as close as possible, which puts the Showstopper into range, especially when you use range mods on a Showstopper, which actually, in many cases, outpeats something like an AR at that sort of distance, which is really scary. So yeah, the first change that we need to look at is the Showstopper, certainly on console. Now the Showstopper currently, and shotguns in general, they give you 1 stack per pellet, which means that a Showstopper, if you fire 1 round, then you are producing 16 pellets. If they all hit, then you're at 16 stacks. In the blink of an eye, you can be at 100 stacks with a Showstopper on console. This is a high rate of fire shotgun, and also it has aim assist, which no other shotgun has, because aim assist was removed from shotguns apart from the Showstopper. That doesn't make any sense to me. Now, I've seen suggestions where people have said, well, actually, I think that if you put out 1 round, it should be 1 stack. I disagree with that, because ultimately, at that point, shotguns would no longer be used at all, because that's going to take you forever to actually get stacks on a shotgun. I think it should just be reduced based on the weapon. So, if it's a high rate of fire shotgun, like the Showstopper, then maybe 1 round gives you 4 stacks. And again, I don't know the figures here. I'm just saying this is my idea. Or, for example, if you're running a low rate of fire shotgun, it should be 8 stacks. I don't know the figures, but you get where I'm going with this. It shouldn't be the way it currently is. And also, they need to remove aim assist from Showstopper. And I think that would fix the Showstopper problem on console. So that's that one problem fixed. Let's move on to the others. The next one is pretty obvious. So at this moment in time, as I mentioned before, there is no hard counter for Striker. We have the EMP sticky, we have EMP nades, but all they do is pause the stacks, which means absolutely nothing, because the Striker player will still have those stacks there. They'll still be able to get that damage and that heal from those stacks, but they are actually just paused at that time, which, as I said before, can be actually advantageous for the Striker user. So what do we suggest? Most people have suggested that the EMP should reset the stacks, and you should not be able to build stacks whilst that EMP effect is still live. I 100% agree with that. I think that's how it should have been originally, and I'm very surprised it's taken the devs this long, A, to look into the Striker meta issue, and B, to fix that, because I think that was how it was intended to be. I could be wrong about that, but that certainly seems to be the best way to have a hard counter against Striker. A lot like an immunizer box for Predator. That would be a great hard counter to Striker, one that we need to see in the next update. Now, I said at the beginning of the video, I didn't want to go crazy with nerfs, because I don't want Striker to become a build that no one ever uses again, because it's been nerfed into the ground. So some of these suggestions I don't agree with, because they would pretty much nerf the set into the ground. But let's look at the healing of Striker. So currently, if you're sitting at 50 stacks, your healing's pretty great. The amount of healing you get from Striker is pretty crazy compared to any other build in the game. And again, this build offers high damage and a lot of self-heal that no other build can offer. So one suggestion that the Dolphin made on Reddit said that only hits on NPCs will build healing stacks. So that's a way to actually change the gear set, that it doesn't affect PvE and only affects PvP. But if we coupled that with the hard counter as well of the EMP, do we think that at that point Striker would balance? So you still get the 100 stacks, but you don't get the heal, so you've still got the highest damage dealing build in the game by a country mile, but you don't get that heal. I think that would be fair, and you also have the EMP sticky and the counter. I think that would be balanced at that point. I think that would be fair. You've got a really strong build that's offering a lot of damage, but you've got counters to it, just like any other build in the game. I think that would be fair, and also it means that you wouldn't have that self-heal that no other build has. And I think that's a really good idea. Other people have recommended that the stacks be reduced to 50 in PvP as opposed to 100. So maintaining the heal, but only getting stacks up to 50. And I think with that, we would also have the hard counter of the EMP as well. Again, that may work. I just don't know. And these are all suggestions from you guys. I'm going over them and seeing what everyone thinks about them, because both of these might work. I just don't know at this point, and I think they need to be tested. I don't think that the devs should come in here and take one suggestion and just... Because ultimately, they are taking Division 2 staff to fix this problem. I don't want it to be a quick fix. They come in, they nerf the set to the ground, no one ever uses it again. Because that would be really, really annoying. And the last one that people have recommended is that you reduce the rate at which stacks are built or increase the rate they are lost. Again, that could absolutely work, along with the EMP counter. As you probably noticed, I think the EMP counter for everyone is the main nerf, or not nerf, but counter that Striker needs at this point, just like Predator had. And then anything with that may help towards making the gear set balanced. Like I said at the start of the video, I don't want to go crazy with this, because I don't think Striker's so far past that I don't think it's so strong that you have to use it at all, because I use a lot of builds that are not Striker, and I melt people that are Striker. especially when they're not using showstoppers, because that is the major issue, certainly on console, is showstoppers. So as long as they fix that, then console, I think, will be fine, as long as we've got a hard counter, like the EMP, for example. On PC, I can't say too much, because I simply don't play PC. So anyone who plays PC who watches my videos, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of these suggestions, whether they would work on PC or not, or you have your own suggestions. Of course, anyone can get involved. Leave your comments down below. I've done as best I can here, guys. I've gone over all the stuff that I can find, and these seem to be the most prominent reasons or prominent fixes for this set, and I'd have to agree with all of them, because I just don't know at this point which ones will work. I think the major one here is the EMP. It needs to hard counter Striker. It needs to reset those stacks, and whilst that EMP effect is live, stacks cannot be built. There you go. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Until the next one, Epic out.